What's up,
Hell yeah.
everybody? Today we've got a good one. You guys all know Jeremy. You know him. You watch his content if you watch my content. So Jeremy, kick it off. I think we're on day 104 in a row of doing these every single day. So
Congratulations.
a little different than your content. You got the bangers. I've just got like these little micros every day.
Dude, I do twice a week,
Yeah.
I stick to that schedule religiously, but I don't go beyond that. I don't know how you do it every day, man.
It's the cadence. Yeah, no, I got to move to the 2. I got to move. I was going to go 100 days in a row and I just couldn't stop. So now I got you. But cool.
Dude,
So who are you?
habitual-wise.
What's your, I mean, dude, the quick reference actually, I got to think of how long ago this was. Like whenever Megalodon, like the OG course, the OG Kajabi platform, like when you were adding stuff to the catalog, I bought like the first thing, like way
The
back
agency
when.
course?
Yeah, way back when,
Dude,
before it
that's
was even
sick.
like full
The
agency.
DMM.
I had your DMM. I had like the contracts from there. Like I had like little stuff there. Some of my first stuff was random like website builds or some little things like that. On
Congratulations.
ClickFunnels. It was using your stuff. So like full circle.
That was before you did everything with Warrior Babe and all that?
Yeah. Way before.
Dude,
Like
sick.
way before. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I think a lot of people who sell information, constantly propagate this as a belief system, but buying info is one of the fastest ways to progress. I mean, dude, look at your outcomes. Although to be fair, you're obviously a rare outcome in terms of the scale that you've reached and acquired. Like the probability of that is very small. If I was watching this, I wouldn't have the expectation I'd hit your level. But what I would think to myself is if I could do a fraction of that. And I remember the video, somebody had sent it to me. They were like, hey, this Ryan guy just shouted you out. He said he bought one of your courses and he talked highly of it. And I watched it to try to figure out like, obviously what you had bought and like what you had watched. And I was like, makes total sense. Almost everybody that I meet is such a rarity where they don't consume info in one way, shape, or form. Like there's guys who don't like to read books. There's guys who don't like to listen to podcasts, but like everybody has their own, mechanism for like how they learn, even if it's just talking to others and paying to get in front of people. It's such a cheat. It's like I do when I was young, I played Grand Theft Auto on PS2 and I had like the little cheat code book. You remember those?
Yeah.
Left down, right up, left down, and anyway, long story short, I always tell me, I'm like, mentors are fucking cheat codes for real life, dude. You can pay a dude to teach you how to get a result faster comparatively to having to do it on your own. Like, why would you not try to increase your odds?
Yeah.
By spending a measly couple bucks, it's just money,
Yeah. No, seriously. I mean, I have that video you're specifically talking to. It's like guru something. It's like I paid all the gurus, but I'm not a guru or something like that. And I just go down the list and I'm like hundreds of thousands in, but like you isolate some of them that have had like the biggest impact for me. And that whole video was then all to say like what you consume: YouTube, podcasts, listen, Audible, physically read, or jump the line and buy a course. But even some of the stuff that you can get in courses that are paid, you can find so much for free on YouTube and like how you choose to learn. But like I bought an ovens course, the middle one, and like very quickly learned like I didn't want to be a consultant. I didn't want to do that. But I met my business partner of this inside the community. He made a post in that group. I reached out to him individually, and then I started building pages for him and like doing random ClickFunnels stuff. And then fast forward a little bit, and it was a call funnel and ownership. And then I became, a partner in this. And then we were doing like 20 grand a month, and then we were doing like 100 and then 500 and then and I met him in that group. So it's like, is that worth the $5,000 or whatever I paid to get in the course? Yeah, it is.
Hell yeah, it is.
Dude,
I was with Ty Lopez on his farm just sometime in this month. I don't remember what specific
Your
days,
Instagram stories crack me up, dude. You are everywhere.
Yeah, you like them?
Yeah.
Dude, I love posting on stories. It's like one of the rare places where I like actually post what's going on. But yeah, I was out there. We're teeing up a challenge funnel that we're launching, and I won't air Ty's business out there for like how much he's going to spend on it, but we're going pretty big. And long story short, to your point, like I'd never bought into Sam Ovens course, but I remember way back in the day when I was first getting on game to Ty, I remember him and Sam did that huge affiliate deal. Like Ty was like, I honestly don't think Sam Ovens would exist if it wasn't for Ty Lopez, dog. Like straight up. I can confidently say that on whatever fucking public mechanism. I bet Sam would agree. That level of affiliate relationship that those two had was fucking insane, dude. And then I thought that was big. And then Ty had gone on to have 400,000 plus students inside of that SMMA program he came out with. And again, like the scale was just that's what I think most people really lack. I feel like they really lack examples of significance and like serious fucking scale, like a guy like you officially putting out your business and like talking about things and sharing lessons when you've done what you've accomplished too, which is not to make you feel little, by the way, a fraction of what these big dogs have accomplished in comparison. Like I'm sure you yourself can, like you look up all the time. And that in turn, like that feeling of like, got to think big and feel small. You know, I think that's one of the best strategies in life, period, in order to make the things that are like big for most people just like a fucking stepping stone on the path to some serious fucking money, you know?
Yeah. And I like your whole thing around like $1 million months. Like I watch every single video you drop. Like I think I get such little nuggets. We drop them to teams, obviously in the marketing related, but like a lot of the stuff you get once it starts to kind of cross over into sales. Like I kind of hang out on this portion. Like I talk about the funnels and whatever, but I don't do the copy. I don't do the media buying in there. But this on show rates over here, and then I focus all on this side. But the $1 million month thing is like almost, depending on how you look at it, like the stepping stone zone to like, you say things in there that are like, oh, so-and-so got, positioned to exit, or so-and-so is doing 5 million a month now, or so-and-so. And like, I only know a couple guys that are doing, you have the massive guys, you have the Tony Robbins, you have the, other people that do like large scale info coaching. But I personally only know 2 different people that do over 10 million a month in info coaching. And like, I listen to your videos.
10 mil a month is serious.
Oh,
that's a serious level, It's like
serious.
To your point, like I know a handful that do more than 10 mil a month, specifically in info. Yeah. I mean, that's a level right there. I mean, to be clear, I always look at it
on the coaching side, to be fair, and there is a bit of an e-com component, but it's like post. So
dude, you're doing 10 mil a month. Like you've reached a level of scale that's like true significance. And like but those guys still think huge, Huge. Like a good example of that is Ty. Like, I think it's so funny how much people talk shit about Ty. I love Ty. Ty's one of the best fucking examples like ever in terms of mentors. And just to be fair, it's like I learned a little differently from him because we have a client relationship with him. But I mean, again, it's like those guys still don't just stop by any means. Like they think in even greater significance scale in comparison to the level that we all think they're at. And they don't view themselves as huge. They know the position they're at, of course. Like they're not naive. But like strategically, again, they still think so much bigger than they actually are. Even me talking about $1 million months, I'm very realistic about the fact that there's such a small quantity of people that hit those numbers. And I constantly put out, expectations about that, like the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, that 0.1% of people ever hit $10 million a year. But the same government entity, the good old United States government, they also openly talk about a small business is classified as anything under $40 million a year. So like people think in significance of $1 million a month, yet that's fucking 12 mil a year, dude. You still have a significant amount of revenue to go before you even considered a mid-tier business. You know what I mean? It's like, think about that. And they put out these benchmarks for people. It's just such a shame, to see the like crippling mental position that most people put themselves in, where the size of their goal and what they view as big more than anything is 100,000% relevant to what they end up achieving, and I mean, my time with my very first, well, it wasn't my very first boss, actually my second marketing job I ever had, well-known sales trainer now in the real estate space. He taught me this concept of thinking big when I was very young. When I got recruited to work with the guy, I was 19 at the time. And it just conditioned into me from a young age. Like, dude, you got to go big. There's so like, have you ever openly talked about how much more you get to create and in what speed you get to create it due to the level of revenue that you've produced? Like, do you ever openly talk about that kind of stuff?
I mean, a little, yeah. I mean, I talk about anything. So like, there's nothing that's like held back necessarily. Like I don't drop I say rough numbers for profit numbers. I say rough stuff for that because I have partners and like, I don't think it's fair they didn't sign up to be doxxed on here.
Yeah,
right? So I have some of that stuff. And I also get into the realistic of like, hey guys, understand that this is some giant vanity number and it breaks down into all these things until you hit this, then how you live, then your tax zones, you're like your whole thing. It's like, we're not all taking home 77 million in cash. Like it's not that. But yeah, we definitely, I don't know how much I've highlighted it, but today is a perfect example of that. Like we're getting on, we're like, oh, this and this and this. And we have like a C-suite that then puts it through their teams and like for things to get done. There is a bit of a slowing kind of sometimes with like the corporate structure a little, like versus we could rip some out in a weekend back in the day. But the leverage and impact is massive, like you said, massive.
Yeah, but like to your point though, even just the scale of impact you get to make with the amount of revenue that you have is so extreme. Like I have a client, this guy does a little over 5 mil a month. His test budgets are $100,000.
Yeah. And
again, like the significance of test data that you receive at $100,000 is obviously huge. It's like, I know guys that are like the smallest level of students that I've helped that spend like they have struggled sometimes spend like $100 a day or like $200 a day.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, I'm like, you just get to time travel, that's all additional money does. It like compresses the time frame in which you get to operate and act And more importantly, like it creates that level of impact that becomes normalized at the level you're at. But more importantly, like becomes just, again, significant, like in terms of what you get to do and what you get to produce and how many people you get to help. And like, dude, just even on your main site, like you have 20,000 plus customers that you've helped.
Yeah.
How many people do you think you've helped for free that have been subsidized by the paid?
God. I mean, here's the quick math for you. 1%, 1.5 points buy of our leads.
Yeah, dude, that's exactly right. Yeah, I'm not trying to hijack your thing here just by
No, please.
There's some kind of structure
Like,
you want me to follow, or what do you want to talk about?
20,000. No, we can talk about anything. 20,000.
I talk about thinking big all day. I fucking love thinking.
20,000 info coaching, like actual buyers. But now, like with a low ticket, for example, like we probably sold 5,000 of these low tickets in the last, while testing, while messing around.
You consider it like a drop sell, or is it more like a low ticket to high ticket?
It's a straight low ticket funnel. So we haven't been able to crack it for like scaled cold acquisition. Like it breaks when it gets to like 175, 100 units a day. It's almost, we have so many people already in the CRM from 5-6 years of this that it almost is like through the campaigns acting as retargeting, even though if you can exclude and you can whatever, we kind of just run it how it is. But it almost like picks people up that were a year ago or 6 months ago that went through another funnel that exists in the ecosystem somewhere. So it's not like super, super cold friendly to where we can scale it heavy, but it does thousands of dollars a day. And it has a very... Are you
taking it to cold yet?
Yeah, it is in cold. It's in cold, but then like it just grabs, like you look at Hi-Res, for example, and like how many new leads versus actually how many like actual leads. It's like, 50%, call it. We've done the exclusions. We've kind of tested out there. We've changed the entire framing of the page to make it so it's cold friendly instead of what the existing one was, kind of like shorter, simpler, and actually converted better because it was really acting as retargeting. Did the ascension rate on it. So for us, it's a low ticket ascension funnel. It's sales page with a name, email to go to checkout. They go through checkout, and then the thank you page. There's an order bump on there now for some AOV love, but no upsells. The thank you page is like, congratulations, you've been upgraded XYZ. Now book your quick start call. And we get like 75% take rate on that. They get on with a setter, 15-minute Zoom call with a setter. Then they go from setter to closer. It has the highest show rate, the highest close rates, and the ascension rate is, let's just say 5+ right now. Like cooks.
What's the AOV on what you send them to?
It's sub 100 and it's 7 to 10K.
Yeah, sick. Dude, I fucking love low ticket to high ticket ascension. Do you remember the period? I don't know if you went through the same like slump. I saw it collectively across the board, like not only just in clients we help, but just it seemed like damn near everybody. There was that duration of time from like arguably like 2014 to probably late stage like 2018, where you had like the automated webinar, live webinars, challenge funnels, events, low ticket to high ticket ascension. Like these things were just fucking cranking. Yeah. And then you had that like COVID era where everything seemed to change. Like it seemed, and I liked it a lot. It seemed to change to like call funnels. And we had this strategy we called the Hydro. It was like this conditional logic lead form strategy, like the ones built into the platform itself, feed them to really hungry setter teams. And like people were just upselling like crazy through the more like direct funnels. And we were convinced that it was, have you ever read the book Pendulum? You ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Dude, one of my favorite books. I don't think it applies when you read it to marketing, but like you take the concept, you apply it to marketing. And I think that's what happened. I think for a duration of time, the types of people that preferred to buy that way through those types of funnels, that was like where the pendulum was at its greatest. And then you saw this like slow migration to these extremely direct funnels, like the call funnels, the lead forms, and just things that, didn't make you watch like hours of content or like make you buy something cheap before you got to buy the more costly thing. And again, I think the pendulum has swung back into the counter side again. And we're seeing those funnels crush right now, dude, like crush. We have a guy, we just got introed to him. I won't say who it is so I could say the numbers, but this guy wants to spend $5 million on a challenge funnel just to put into perspective, like the level of risk that the absolute fucking big dogs are taking on, these types of funnels again. And I think a big part of what helped the pendulum swing, besides just every funnel was like direct oriented, we had all that short form really take off at the same time. So like people for a long time were consuming these really like direct and tiny pieces of content, and they were thinking kind of like executive summaries of books. You ever read executive summaries instead of the actual book? It's like I sometimes find myself doing that, and then I think to myself, I'm like, I probably missed so much shit that this author like learned and put the work into expressing in like the expanded versions of it. And anyway, long story short, I think that people started to realize that, and I think that's a big part of what made the pendulum swing back to these like longer format funnels working again. But man, I think salespeople also love these types of funnels so much because you can liquidate
Yeah.
a lot of the ad spend on the front end. Like we're going into a lot of these challenges as an example, profitable. We're not really doing paid webinars. We're still doing free webinars. We're not really liquidating anything on those,
Really?
but
Okay.
still the
Yeah.
profitability is insane on
Yeah.
like we're seeing like minimum like 5-to-1 on webinars when we like fuck up, you know? The moral of the story is like the low ticket to high ticket specifically though, not to digress too much, is one of my favorite, like yet untapped strategies by a majority of people. I don't think that people recognize that business owners specifically are trying to make fucking buku bucks. I don't think they recognize the true power of a really dialed in setter team that can, and more importantly, a dialed in low ticket product. Because like that low ticket thing that you're talking about that has a really good ascension rate, I bet you're following every best practice that there is in regards to a fast result, something that people can immediately like consume and feel like they benefited from. The downsides of low ticket is when you do it wrong. Like if you have a product that has some long drawn out consumption period and it takes a long time to get whatever the result is that's promised in it. And even crazier, it's not even a result that might align to the higher ticket thing that you want to upsell them on.
One.
You know, it's like there's rules of the game, simply put. You know what I mean? I know you know. But anyway, I love low ticket so much, but only in the context of obviously sending people to high ticket. I am a high ticket junkie. I am a huge advocate for high ticket anything, whether it's a product or service. I had a buddy started a hyperbaric chamber company. He hit $1 million a month in 4 months of starting, but it's like his average order value is like 50, 60 grand for a hyperbaric chamber, you know? His customer base is already super fucking rich. And again, it's like people just discount how much better it is to optimize a business around high ticket and, in my preference, selling to rich people too. You know, you do it a little differently, I would assume. I assume that you're not just considering what you're selling as rich people.
I mean, like our target demo is that. So like just by nature, like you look at the TAM, you look at, you're talking about stats earlier, you pull it up. Like we have the highest, spendable cash of any market, women 40 to 60, like as an average, right? Then of course you have your pockets within there, like a business owner or this or that. There's other people that do this specifically for people who do, who make X income and all that. You just said so many good things there. Like I'm trying to but the first one that you were talking about, I watched your video, which is like which funnel type right now, like ranked and all that. So we
the S tier list.
Yeah, the tier list. We have only ran VSL opt.
I love it. Dude, that's my favorite funnel. I gotta keep it real. Like the only reason that in most instances we ever have to run any other type of funnel is because of salespeople. Like that's really it. It's so easy to get financially qualified people to book calls, but without the right back-end selling systems enabled that help move a lead that just booked a call further along in the sales process, you're just going to get whiny salespeople that say the leads. Most sales teams are really, really unarticulate. Like they fail to give feedback that marketing can actually use. And we don't tolerate that. So like we generally, with any sales organization we work with, whether it's in-house or one of these sales agencies that exist, we get really good feedback. And long story short, as a result of that, like I've developed a lot of these things. I call them back-end selling systems. Like these back-end systems are, to be clear, 4 of them in particular that I've developed right now. Number 1, confirmation page best practices. We put these things called breakout videos onto the pages, and they immediately answer a lot of the questions. And what we find, simply put, and this is really important to understand, right? People move further along in the sales process and prioritize something, and that leads to an action with the right information. When there's a lack of information, there's a lack of prioritization and a lack of action that occurs. And so as a result of that thinking, that's helped me with the confirmation page best practices. This other thing we call value dense email sequences, which again, is just dense amounts of information that help move people along in the sales process. By the time they show up to that call, they have a higher probability to buy in a shorter duration of time. The Hammer Them campaign, which takes an excessive amount of content and just blasts it at these fucking people who take key actions, both short and long form. And then the final thing is what the salespeople can manually do, which I generally, as this principle, here's the best part. Each one of these things independently can create massive impact on their own. Okay. You just combine them together and I call it back end selling systems. These specific things combined, like it's so hard to fuck that up with the level of impact you can have on something like a call funnel. And that's an example of like, even though the pendulum swung back to these longer format, like, challenge funnels, webinars, low ticket to high ticket, you can still absolutely crush with call funnels, but it's augmented with a lot of content consumption and information density to help people create a priority out of whatever it is that, you want to sell them on. People show up to a sales call with a lack of information. It's no longer a sales call, it's an education call. And when it's an education call, your salespeople will typically say stupid shit like, oh, the leads aren't qualified, or these people are cold. Yeah. And when they compare them to people, especially from organic, that's the number one polarizing bias we get between a team that does really well organically and when they introduce paid ads. They'll typically bitch most about that. Like they'll give that kind of feedback. But what they're actually trying to say is, in a way that they aren't like able to articulate, is like, hey, these people need far more information to actually be able to make a buying decision. And people don't consider like the amount of content and over what duration of time the content gets consumed organically. So you fail to replicate an organic sales process when you fail to get the same amount of information in a substantially shorter duration of time. So, and the information is typically not consumed the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So question on that, because so we do this right now where our belief around the VSL opt-in funnel is that because they have the intention and they put the micro commitment, they put their name and email, they have to wait until X portion of the VSL until the apply even pops, and then they get all the contextual follow-ups, but they get 2 emails a day that push them to the main site. And then from there, it's like the web of content. They can consume as much as possible. And if you look on the average like time from lead to close, like it varies vastly, but exactly what you're saying, like the consumption, all of our organic exists as middle and bottom. We have like 0.1% that's first click organic for us. Like crazy behavior over there. But then, and the reason I say that is then we go to do a DTA, which is what we call it. I don't know, I think direct to VSL, but the headline, VSL, an app button right there.
Yeah,
I've heard you talk about it.
I just embed the app, by the way. I don't even do the button. I just embed the app right there.
Yeah. So like, how are you solving for consumption from cold on that? I mean, yeah, and we're doing all
great point. See, here's the thing. It's like, I don't give a fuck about the front end consumption of the information like you articulated that you do there. I'm all for, I want to be really clear and say this. The general public specifically, and when you're selling to the general public, you do have to behave a little differently with how you're going to execute these tactics and strategies. You should absolutely give a fuck about front-end consumption with the general public. But it's also based on, I call it the interest spectrum. So I generally visualize this in like a bar chart, okay? And I like to say there's about 4 stages of levels of interest. I think there's curious, I think there's general interest, I think there's highly interested, and then I think there's convicted. And I think above convicted is where deals get done. If you have things in your ads where it's like image ads or like very, very surface level video ads that create curiosity but not a higher level of interest beyond that, I do believe that you need to obviously increase the amount of consumption on the front end as a result of a failure to like frame the lead from the ad to the page properly. Your page then becomes what has to increase the interest level to get somebody supercharged to come out the other side more probable to buy. Yep. So I don't like look at it like it's just one or the other. I look at it like it's an entire system that has to be optimized together. And so due to the power of what I've seen on the back-end selling systems specifically, these back-end selling systems have substantially greater consumption comparatively to the front-end consumption. That's what I've seen time and time again every time we roll these out. I can come into a business that has like let's call it in the teens or even single-digit play rates on VSLs, where they're still getting a really good cost per call, and they see some of the symptoms of people showing up and treating the call like an education call, and people show up with like long sales cycles as a result of treating it like an education call, and you get that type of sales feedback I just described with all leads are cold or not ready to buy yet. And all we have to do is just implement something as simple. Like we had a guy the other day. We've had 2 Inner Circle members that have seen this level of result just as an example of recent ones I can think of. A 32% lift and a 36% lift in show rate only from taking the breakout videos and putting them onto the confirmation page. Like that was it. That's all they did. They didn't even do the other 3 yet. And to be clear, I can't stress this enough. It's not about when they consume the information. Okay, it's just about the information getting consumed. Yeah, you understand? So yeah, I'll frame it like this from like a literal example from this week. So I pay a fuckload in taxes every month, as I'm sure you do too, on an annual basis, however you choose to pay them. I have a tough time nutting up and paying 7 figures in one time, so I pay it monthly instead. Long story short,
until it's like 7-figure monthly,
I do like the estimated tax thing, Yeah. And then I get chipped with like a little bill at the end, or maybe one of these years I get lucky, I get a little money back, But anyway, as a result of like just constantly fucking talking about taxes, you'd imagine I get targeted by a fuckload of tax strategists and things like that. So anyway, I see this guy's ad, And it was so good. The guy explains, he's like, look, you're not poor anymore. Like you're rich. You know, you don't need a CPA and like a fucking tax attorney. Like you need tax strategists. And like, let me explain what it is. And he starts articulating the differences between, you know, your standard, like what you likely used on your business on the way up, and all of these like super legal ways for tax reduction strategies that I've like vaguely heard about, or and this guy elaborated it well enough in the video ad where when I went to the page, I was ready to book a call right then and there and talk to the guy. And instead, you know what he did? He fucking delayed the application button. And look, dude, I'm busy and rich. Okay, like I went to that page, I was ready to go. You could have honestly, you could have picked up the phone and just talked to me right then and there, answered like a handful of questions. There's a really high probability I would have bought. Yeah. Even if I could have scheduled a call and he would have gotten me even more information in between then and the call, again, even higher probability I would have bought. But instead, what'd he do? Yeah, delayed the fucking button. Okay, you think I stayed until the button showed up?
No.
Yeah, get fucked. I didn't. I left immediately. I was like, oh no, this like, is this an error? I even gave him the benefit of the doubt, refresh the page. It wasn't an error. The fucker delayed the button. I was out. Now, ask yourself this, Ryan. Am I a qualified customer in that example, just ready to buy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, I don't even know that fucking guy's name. I couldn't remember right now.
I heard your video talking about the Dubai one where you were like, or hearing about
dude,
that.
the Dubai
like,
one's a perfect example. Like that. Now that was more of an example of the failure of the back-end selling systems. Like they didn't give me, so like they did a good job of framing on the front end, right? And that's what most businesses do. They don't look at the entirety of the process. Like they only look at the front end where they're like, I need a good ad, I need a good VSL, and then I just need reminder emails. Like these people are going to show up. On that interest spectrum I talked about, I view it as like a dynamic thing. So like after the action's taken, if no additional information is consumed, I believe the interest level falls from whatever level they're at to a subsequent level below it. And I believe with the right information, and sometimes to be fair, with the wrong information, it can go down. With the right information, we get to punch that bar up further. And I believe it's like a dynamic thing. I don't believe it's static. You know, I believe it moves in real time relative to information or a lack of information that's consumed. So moral of the story is, yeah, with that Dubai one, it's the same kind of context. It was, okay, I'm again just trying to fucking lower this godforsaken tax bill just over here getting milked. I'm just getting the living shit milked out of me by the government. How do I get this thing down? And long story short, company says, hey, we can offshore your corporation in Dubai. We can like license your IP to the corporation in Dubai. You just put all your profits into this corporation and you zero out your profits in the United States entity and you set up this offshore entity. And apparently the only tax you're going to pay is this new tax called a guilty tax, which is introduced by the Trump administration. A great name, by the way. Yeah, great. And long story short, it was a 9-day window before the call happened. And they got me fuck all information in that full 9 days. All they sent was reminder emails. Not even a salesperson reaching out, just touching base. And as you can imagine, like, again, interest spectrum falls as a lack of information is delivered to the lead. By the time that call happened, I have infinite shit, as I'm sure you do too, that you could go do in comparison to a sales call for something that was 9 days ago that you don't even recollect or remember. You have that experience, and I'm sure a bunch of people watching this have that experience with leads that booked 24 hours ago or 72 hours ago. Now just expand that out over 9 fucking days. It's like, it's a system, right? You have to have the front end dialed in, and you could do what you described, where you can do the button delay. But I think, you know when I think the button delay works best? When the leads are only curious and you have to increase their interest to at least a general or highly interested level. I do not believe that the button delay works otherwise, because if I have a highly effective ad and I get supercharged people who are highly interested to the page, in market, ready to go, I'm going to lose a tremendous amount of very qualified people. And to be clear, Ryan, I might still have a great cost per call by doing the button delay, but I might have significantly greater revenue numbers if I let those people through and I took the same information. That's what most people do. You ever see the silly question in a VSL out in the wild in somebody's application where they ask the dumbass question, did you consume the entire VSL before you booked the call? You ever see that shit?
Oh, yeah. We're literally we're testing it on one of the DTAs right now. It's the first question.
Yeah, get fucked with that. I hate that. Yeah, it's like that's representative of the fact that you have no back-end selling system. So like if you fail to take what is talked about in the VSL that you're attempting to get people to consume that you believe makes a significant difference to the sales process, why would you not take that same exact information and reiterate it on the back end? Why be so pretentious in the thought that, Okay, they watched it in the VSL. That means they're going to remember it before the fucking call that happens in like 48 hours or 72 hours, right? It's like, why would we not reiterate the things? I have, like Ryan, great example of this. I'm sure you have this too. People pay you money. You tell them exactly what they need to do in like one form of a consumable, maybe like a video or an SOP or whatever form of like how you got it to them. And you'll have the same question you answer like 1,000 times over and different consumables. And you find yourself talking about it like a very high frequency. And to you as the person talking about it at a very high frequency, you might interpret that like any regular person would as, why the fuck do I have to keep talking about this? You know, but in reality, it's like that there's a different like brain you have to use and deploy when you are dealing with at scale volumes of leads. Like, why would you not take the key things that you are tired and bitching about people not knowing by the time they show up to the call and reiterate it to them in many consumables prior to the call? Why would you not? You know, that's my thesis. And that proves out time and time again to have a very high impact in businesses who apply that same thesis. You know what I mean? And that's the word I'm really trying to get out there. And in this particular episode that we're on now, you know, there's tons of other shit that works really well that we could talk about too. But that specific thing is like literally right here, right now, one of the number one things I think businesses are completely fucking whiffing on.
Yeah, I mean, us included. Right now, this is our lowest month-to-date show rate we've ever had right now. And I watched one of your videos right in the beginning, and also like we have true seasonality of like, oh, it's summer, and like all these women, these 46-year-old women book the calls, and then kids on summer breaks, and like you see the excuses or whatever, the cancellations change like kind of seasonally. But this is notoriously now 3 years in a row like a low month for us. Not an excuse, but like is. So we're like looking at this on how do we do this? And now we did 71 million with no setters, no confirmations, no like call dial teams. We are now
great offer, by the way. That's representative of the fact you just got a baller offer that's in demand and you got a nice
I mean, it's worked for us, no doubt. But like it was literally one funnel we ramped through it.
But you probably could have made like 240 if you would have had that shit dialed in, dude.
Oh my god, and retention alone, we left 40 million on the table. Like, oh my god. So, but it's so interesting. I watched one of your videos. We sent it over to team. We implemented, and it was hilarious. We changed up the thank you page. We added in the hammer them. We did the hammer them wrong, so it wasn't excluded. Like it was like completely skewed and set up wrong. We got a new CMO that came in that wants to join your mastermind, by the way, so we can talk about that offline. But that'll probably happen very soon here.
Dude, we can talk about it right now, Ryan. You're gonna fuck me so hard if you join into that. That's what I always tell people, especially people like you. You join into that kind of thing. Think about how easy it is. We had a guy join in. He had a 36% show rate. It went to 74% in a week and a half. He made $178,000. That guy paid me 60 grand for the year. In a week and a half, I call it the you're fucking me spectrum, right? When you first pay, I'm fucking you. But when you all of a sudden make far more money than what you're going to pay me in a year, you fuck me. I believe deeply in immediately, as fast as I can, flipping that spectrum into your favor. And think about this. You know why you did the hammer them strategy wrong? Because you don't have the hammer them SOP. You're just watching it off of videos. And to be fair, on the free videos I put on YouTube, I do try to put out tremendous levels of game to help people make money and get a better result. But at the same time, the paid stuff, I'm not one of those dickheads that puts out all my great stuff for free. I put out like 10, maybe at most 15% of the real fucking sauce. Yeah. And even think about it right now, like conceptually what we're talking about, people are sitting here and they're like, that makes a fuckload of sense. I'm gonna go try that. And they're gonna get a result. But at the end of the day, if I showed you a fuckload of examples, if I showed you the specific SOPs, if I showed you the millions of dollars a month that we spend on these strategies and what we already figured out the hard way, that's an exact example of what we talked about at the very beginning. Yeah. What a great open loop that we just closed.
We got to open a new one. What was the OG?
You were saying, what did your show rate do though? What were you saying? What was the result?
Our show rate dipped under 50% as global. And what I say when I say that is every single booking completely possible to a live call. So you have dupes, you have reschedules, you have cancel, you have every possible thing that could possibly happen. You isolate them to buckets, and it's like the ones that are confirmed by a setter, 68%. You have the ones that come through low ticket, 84%. You have like all these different ones, and then you have the ones that are like drag the boat down, which are the unconfirmed, which we now started doing, like open up the free spot so they can get double booked if a setter can't confirm with them. So we added in setter dial confirmations. We added in we changed all the text sequences. We're still sending green because here's the other thing is we're doing hundreds of calls
Brutal.
hundreds a day of calls.
Third world text messages, bro. You can't even get them iPhones. You had 71 million. You can't get them iPhones.
Dude, the management and the thought behind that like blows my mind. So then we find all these like platforms, and we have XYZ platform. Actually, I got on with them and talked about it. So like we use SendBlue. We use SendBlue for an automation thing. It doubled the response rate on Blue.
Dude, the costs though on those are insane. Like, although to be fair, like it is technically an ROI positive action. It's like you could just get
still,
business lines.
it's still insane.
You
but
get
it's
business lines and iPhones for every person in your organization, which would arguably be more beneficial. The only downside is you don't get to track it. You know, you don't get to throw the data into the CRM. So like the cost though is hundreds of dollars a difference per line per month by using their tools, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. And then use one of the Blue tools. Exactly. Those are crazy. But we threw in, where I'm going with this is we threw in the emails with no context other than let's just email them every 2 hours on the 2 hour. No,
you did the 6 a day?
No proper filtering, no proper whatever.
Yeah. Hey, be careful on that, by the way. There's a regulation about that could get you fined.
Yeah, so don't worry. Within a week of doing it, the amount of people that were like, stop emailing me, we like completely trimmed it down. Yeah.
There's a good, I usually start like 3 a day or 4 a day until we get a diminishing open rate. So like we'll kick it all the way up to 6 a day. But again, it's very important to understand, right? You might have also gotten that level of feedback because the information that you specifically chose to send might not have been the information
100%,
that actually was like
100%.
preferential to be consumed. You know?
Pages were ugly. The content was just content that we threw together to do it. It wasn't like, scrape all your clothes, lost all the wrong questions.
Good information that they actually want to know. That's what makes it like welcomed. 6 a day sounds fucking audacious to somebody sitting here that doesn't understand the principle behind like what you're sending in the 6 a day.
The worst part, we included it in the SMS. We included it in the SMS too, so we were SMSing them like 3 times.
That's crazy. I respect the text messages. The only thing I do via text is I have the salespeople manually reach out, and I have them. Listen to this, right? I believe that the setter's responsibility and the salespeople's responsibility outside of what marketing can do. Marketing's kind of like, unless you really spend the time to take application data that you receive and create a bunch of little like spider-webbed contextual communication sequences relative to the application data you got, which is smart. And arguably when you have the initial automation sequences created for emails and texts, you should go back and adapt them to be contextual eventually, because that creates a huge difference in response and consumption of the data. But the salespeople's job prior to the call, when you don't have a lazy organization, is to tailor information specific to what the lead wants. So literally right before this, I had gone and gotten a little apology gift from my fiance down in the design district. Okay, I'm a very direct individual, and sometimes I'm rather abrasive, so I feel bad. So I buy her gifts, it makes me feel better. So anyway, I was down in the design district, okay? And I went to Laurel Piano, and I'd gotten some nice baby blue, whatever the fuck they call them, the shoes, and this little like picnic basket air balloon looking bag from their new resort collection, okay? And that specific lady, like, she does such a phenomenal job. Like, I get blasted with like the Laurel Piano, just, hey, we got this new collection kind of emails, or like, the general communication that goes out to literally everybody. But that lady, she knows I don't buy shit. I wear this same outfit every day. I have 70 of this exact t-shirt and 70 of this exact pair of shorts, okay? This is my daily outfit. The only thing I rotate is a watch and sometimes my shoes, okay? And long story short, she knows I'm not buying shit. So if she ever sends me men's stuff, which again, she never does, because she knows I never buy shit, it's like, I'm not going to be responsive to it. I'm not even going to fucking look. What she does is she sends me very specific things in the colors that she knows I'm more probable to buy, and specific styles of things they sell that I've historically purchased or shown interest in that are specifically gifted to my fiance. And as a result of that, I have a dramatically higher response rate. I spend more money at that specific location in the design district compared to all the other stores, because nobody at Chanel does that for her. Nobody at all the other little fucking stores do that for her. The only person that takes the time to do that is this single woman at Laurel Piana. And my point is like businesses, right? If they have their salespeople actually reflect on the application data that they receive, which is the first set of real communication you get on a lead. And on top of that, you obviously have the person's info. Like, go look them up. You know how much you can learn about somebody just from looking at their Instagram profile or whatever other public social media channels they have? Google the person's name. Google the person. We have one organization. They teach people with a 90+% success rate how to cut out alcohol. Okay? They look people up on Google because they deal with executives and rich people, And they found just the other day, there was this guy who came through who was a surgeon out in Houston who wanted to cut out alcohol. The salesperson had 3 examples they were able to pull from documented testimonials of people who were doctors and coincidentally another surgeon. And that specifically, imagine just getting blasted with one of those giant fucking testimonial pages, right? It's like, nobody gives a fuck about that. The only time they generally care about testimonials is trying to look at the bad ones to see how fucked they could get if they work with you. It's like, in comparison, you know which ones they do care about that are the good ones? The ones that are people similar to them. That guy read those testimonials. He moved his call time up by a full 36-ish hours and bought on that call. They normally have a 2-call close process that takes about a 10-day window for their average deal cycle to close. It's like, all you got to do is just those little contextual opportunities to kind of like tailor and personalize information. That's the salesperson's job prior to a call, because in almost all instances, marketing doesn't have the willingness to take all that same data and create like, you know, massive amount of individual contextual communications. It'd be rather tough. AI might get us there soon enough, but for right now, it's like a fuckload of manual labor.
So we use that right now. So we built one in-house that'll take their application info, but we only use it for app no books, which I know you're going to say is stupid because I watch your stuff and you're like, you should have 100% app to booking ratio because you embed them in one.
Well, no, I mean, to be fair, like even when you integrate the Typeform and Calendly combo, you'll still get a drop off, but it's not going to be like 50%, like if you separate the 2 pages out, you know? So, I mean, dude, that's a huge amount of revenue right there.
60%, we separate them out. But so like, let's, you know.
You get a 60% drop?
No, 40% drop, 60% throughput.
Jesus, dude, crazy you tolerate that.
Yeah, so we have the app to booking, and the app to booking flow. It's blue messages from an AI, and it reads their application completely, and then contextualizes the response. Like it's like, hey, blah, blah, I see you've been struggling with this and whatever, contextual. And then we took all of the website resources, which is hundreds of videos, podcasts, whatever, put them in a database. It can look up based on that and find things, and then link them to be like, have you seen this video that we put out? And it goes to the website, which is like a content web. So like,
that's a great example of money right there. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You know, I fucking love that you did that. That's awesome. Yeah. And even better for you that you have a competitive advantage by not having that be a public tool for others to be able to take advantage of.
True.
Sweet. That's such a good moat tactic right there. Fuck yeah.
It's a good one for those. But no, what you keep saying and what I have been like feeling more and more, and I think, and I've been saying it more publicly, but the info coaching land, the guys who don't want to sell, which is 99.99% of info coaching, with if they can even sell, is this sales team function. It is by far usually the biggest headache, the biggest head count, the biggest like all the things of these info coaching businesses, because usually it's leaner on fulfillment, especially if it's info versus coaching. The marketing team, if they use agency or if they use whatever, they use someone like you, like very light. This sales team, it becomes like they're sales companies, especially when it's like all high ticket.
No, true.
The management, the what slips through the cracks, the like
so
has been insanity. So like, what do you think about that? And I met Josh Troy, and I heard you guys are connected, obviously, right? Yeah. So he's a G. I've been talking to a couple people and like
one of the only people with the sales agency that like takes it serious and actually has like a legit operation. You know? Like he just has really high standards. I appreciate people who have high standards, and he's one of with a few people I think I know professionally over my entire career that operates at like a really high level with again just super high standards. So big shout out to Josh for sure. But anyway, more of the story is I mean, look, there was a strong duration of time, like I'd say like 2020, 2022, where I couldn't even quantify to you right now how much money I lost on sales team performance, just absolutely fucking me like deal after deal. Like we would have, in some instances, without exaggeration, hundreds of like people who said, I have the money to buy this, like I have good credit, you know, like I'm ready to go. And then the sales team would just whiff, dude, just whiff every single time. And again, for a good duration of time, to be fair, and like point the finger of blame at myself, what I would do is the classic like sales versus marketing shtick, where I'd be like, these guys fucking suck, like replace them and make them better. Because the polarizing difference was we obviously have deals that we're doing at the exact same time and a pretty high quantity that are just crushing it with the exact same funnels, sometimes in very similar, if not the same niche, you know, with very similar offer types with like subtle changes, of course. And you know, then you just watch one sales team crush it and make fucking banger amounts of revenue. And then you see one team that just can't even close a deal on hundreds of opportunities, you know? And you look at the differences. And like I said, initially I would just be like, well, I used to call them fat cat closers versus real salespeople, right? And I would vet in our deals, which we still do today, to be fair. of trying to find teams that exclusively have real salespeople. That's another big reason I like Josh. Generally, his sales organizations have fully staffed like real salespeople, and more importantly, real sales management. Okay, so these people, time and time again, to your point, they're like the owner operator, and they don't have sales management. And if they do have sales management, they're equivalent of like a fucking idiot. Like they could be a whatchamacallit, back in the day when we had kings and queens and there'd be the little fool, the little joker, they could be one of those guys, like that's the equivalent of their role, like the king talks highly of them, but they're a fucking idiot, and long story short, like, you come into some of these businesses as somebody who operates at like a significant scale, and like, a lot of my leverage in deals is from rev shares that we have, and we don't get substantial rev shares in deals that are already cranking a couple mil a month. Generally, it's with the businesses that are at like a couple $100,000 or sometimes more than $1 million a month already. So, we come into a situation that's sometimes pretty fucked that we got to fix, but there's like a good offer and a good deal, so it's worth taking on. And simply put, just to reiterate, the biggest impact that we've seen time and time again, instead of blaming the sales team, it's this mindset of, okay, if I was working with a literal pack of monkeys, okay, like just full blown, I needed cashiers at a grocery store, how easy it is to close these deals. What would the differences be in how I would operate comparatively to what I'm choosing to do now in order to create a better result? The quality of questions you ask dictates the quality of the life you live. And that question unlocked a lot of the thinking I've shared today on this specific episode we're talking on right now. The biggest changes, as I mentioned, back-end selling system tactics, the hammer them strategy. A lot of my content ad strategies solve these types of problems. Having clients film very specific videos that, as a list of like high impact videos, there's some very particular ones. I'll share one with you that I share on my YouTube channel all the time. So tell me this, Ryan, would you ever openly go into your payment processor and share your dispute rate with potential customers? Would you make a video like that?
I could, yeah, but we
And
don't.
what level of
And
trust
it's
do you
not
think it would
relevant.
immediately provide if you chose to do something like that?
Yeah, a lot.
Remember, a customer is looking for how fucked they could get by doing a deal with you just as much as they're looking at, well, how good could things go? And in most instances, like your cherry-picked testimonials that almost all businesses, to be fair, I imagine you're likely highly FTC compliant at this point and not probable to be cherry-picking the best testimonials and not showing true averages. But a lot of businesses that obviously are not following FTC compliance, like that's a common practice that they have. Yeah. And that creates distrust. Comparatively, imagine you do a video and you just straight up log into your payment processor and you just straight up show it. You're just like, look, I have a 0.52% dispute rate over the lifetime of my entire amount of transactions. Here's the total amount of people that have ever transacted with us. Here's the ones that have disputed. Here's our total refund rate. And by the way, I'm just going to go through a few with you and I'm just going to show you right now. Let's click on them and let's look. So as an example, when I make that video for mine, no offense to the country of India, every fucking dispute I've ever had is a very low ticket product I tested originating from India from some fucker. And then I go on Google and I type in the name of that product and bam, a fuckload of pirated versions of that exact same piece of whatever the fuck was bought and disputed. And I can tie the two together super easily and be like, arguably my actual dispute rate is essentially zero. Yeah. And the only reason I have ever had disputes is because these fucking dickheads like to pirate my stuff. I was like, long story short, ever since I started charging 5K plus, it's like, coincidentally, we don't get anybody that tries to do that kind of stuff. And I go and I show things like, look, here's the literal handful of people we've ever refunded. And here's the specific stories behind why we've refunded these individuals. And I can't stress it enough. Like, as an example of the level of impact that type of video would create on the back end of somebody doing something like booking a call and going through the research process, or another great one, like, dude, I guarantee you at your scale, somebody Googles your company name with the word scam or review. I bet there's Reddit threads. I bet there's all kinds of random shit. I bet there's YouTube videos about people just telling you you're a fucking scammer. And the thing is like at scale, especially, the spectrum grows in terms of the quantity of people that are just always like there's people right now that no matter how much value you put out, no matter how impactful the things that we sit here and talk about are, and even though we didn't even charge for anything that we just talked about that can make people money based on what we just discussed, there's still some fucking dickhead out there sitting there saying, all course creators are a scammer, like none of them are valuable. And it's like, again, that's totally fine because as that industry grows, the quantity of people that sit there on that end of the spectrum grow, and the quantity of people that are just already sold grow. But the biggest part of the market is the middle part that can be swayed by very simple pieces of information. Generally, when you do research on something, you don't do it deeply and intently until you're actually ready to make a purchase decision. The very first thing you're trying to do, especially when you book a call, Just look for some smoke to see if there might be signal that there's a fire somewhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes all that looks like is going on Google, typing in the company name and the word scam and seeing like one of those little descriptive things underneath a hyperlink that is, we had one the other day, it was so funny. Company name and the word scam. And it was a Reddit thread that didn't even have anything bad about the company name, but the little text that Google decided to annotate as the description of what was said in the Reddit thread based on the query was the company name. I'm an executive at this company, ... Huge scam, ... Charges expensive. And then like, I'm like, whoa, what's this? You click into it, you search literally the entire Reddit thread and you find a single comment that's like really long that had nothing to do with the actual company, to be clear. It was actually a comment talking highly of the company and talking about a competitive company that was a scam that person was an executive at. And it's like, you think the person's going to go and scrub the entire Reddit thread and look for that comment? No, they're going to Google it, see that specific thing and just be like, oh, somebody who's an executive that works at the company called it a scam. They're going to leave. They're just going to be like, I'm not going to show up. So it's like, again, imagine, right? Yeah, the second video you would make is an example of a breakout video. You help people do their research and due diligence and you lend perspective on what they're going to go and find anyway. And like you go on Google and you literally just share your screen and you're like, all right, yeah, so in this video, I'm going to help you do your due diligence on us. First of all, my name's Ryan Clogg. Like, let me go Google myself and the word scam and let's just go through it together and see what we find. And let me try to lend a perspective on anything that we may find together. Let me go look up the company, Warrior Babe. Let's type in Reddit. Let's type in the word reviews. Let's type in the word scam and let's just go through it. You know, let's just look and let me show you what we find because I understand what you're looking for. You're looking for how fucked you could get if you do this deal with us and how bad it could technically be. And I want to show you in this video, I want to show you what we do to keep you safe and how we, you know, I want to demonstrate it. So let me do what a lot of people would never do for you and actually just help you do your research. Here we go. And you just jump into it. You know, it's like, dude, again, you can't tell me a fucking single person you know, Ryan, that's ever told you to make a video like that. I guarantee it. And when you make a video like that, I can't stress it enough. It's like a modern tactic, simply put. It's like, yeah, the pendulum swung back to being able to take these types of like longer form content consumption oriented strategies, but they're not the same as what they were. You don't just get to like fire. I have a guy, we just signed him on as a client. Pretty risky deal to a degree, but I got a great rev share on the deal. He went from 1.4 mil a month down to 300K a month. You know what he was doing? Automated webinars, outdated call funnel tactics. He was doing everything from like 2015, 2016. He hadn't updated a single fucking thing. Worked for him while it worked, didn't work now. And it's like the monkey with the nut in the stump analogy. You heard that one? Where it's like there's a nut in the stump, monkey reaches his hand in. As soon as he grabs it, he can't get it out because his hand's in a fist. Tiger comes along. All the monkey's got to do is just let go of the fucking nut. He doesn't, and he ends up dying from the tiger. It's like that guy's business would have died. It's like I came into it, updated his confirmation page, 19 best practice videos for the breakout bids right away, turned those into value dense email sequences along with a few other ones, got him to film a fuckload of Hammer Them videos, updated his front end content as well, because we do care about the front end too, to be clear. We have a lot of tactics for that too. And we also had him do a live webinar instead of an auto webinar. Bro, you want to just guess the amount of additional revenue in the first 30 days we cleared that guy?
From 300 back to $1 million.
Dude, we got him from 300K to just shy of 700 within about 3 weeks. It's like the level of impact is extreme, to be clear, when you take the right actions instead of just a bunch of outdated actions that no longer work. And I can't stress it enough. Like, how many people have bought courses from at this point that have just gotten straight up burned? You know, how many of them can you go look up where you just go type in and you get propaganda that like courses are the devil and like every one of them's a fucking scammer? It's like, I'll give you a good one. Like, I live in Miami, Florida, and I actually live in a penthouse. It's like, do you know how many little dumbasses with curly hair say that they live in a penthouse in Miami that are like apartments? You know, there's a guy a couple floors down from me that constantly says his is a penthouse. It's a small apartment on the side of the apartments that are small. It's like, I can't stress it enough. You know, even something as simple as that. It's like, I have to show that like it's an actual penthouse. You can land a helicopter on my balcony, how big it is, you know?
Red Bull
but it's
people
like
can
those
jump
little
off of
things. There's so many fucking dumbasses that run around just say, oh, I live in a penthouse in Miami. It's like, when I say it, I immediately align myself to that. So if you think about that same example with, okay, if you sell a course, if you sell info, It's like you're immediately aligned to whatever the person thinks about courses and info. And when you demonstrate through this radical transparency effort of what I just demonstrated in those 2 video examples, you're going to differentiate yourself instantaneously comparatively to anybody else. You get what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, especially what you said around the, like, kind of zooming way back, but the sales marketing, the blame, and then how much marketing can affect it just through these things. Like, we're kind of starting to get into that whole, like, well, if sales close this, and if they increase by 10%, which is like KPI on close rate, we call it sales per booking. So just like total count of bookings, total, and then total closed. And then it's like, we divide that out. And if you're at whatever, 15%, you're crushing, which is 30% close and 50% show, right? The blend. And they're like, well, if they did this, then CPA would be this. And it's like, how much can you help that with all of these things you're talking about? How much can you help that with proper follow-up sequences, hammer them strat, like this, like these different pieces? And then of course there's a function of sales that just drives me crazy.
The main impact we see, like I said, is like, we're just trying to turn the salespeople that, you know, could be good, might be bad, whether they're good or bad. Like, we just want them to have the highest probability of layup deals and turning them into a cashier. So all the back end stuff specifically, obviously I won't impact cost per call and things like that. That's going to impact specifically all the back end statistics, show rate, close rates, how long your sales cycle is, how many PIFs you're getting on average comparatively to payment plans. And these are the statistics that are impacted most by a lot of what I've discussed here today specifically. Front end tactics, it's like, dude, believe it or not, this guy double fucked us on how good of a result he got right away. His show rate went up dramatically. The guy who was in the 30s and went into the 70s. Well, his cost per call, I remember the exact initial cost per call. I think it was either in the high 100s or low 200s. He got it down into the 60s. Okay. So we have a fuckload of stuff we could talk about in the front end too. And again, like, front end matters a lot, to be clear. Like, we love obviously optimizing the front end. That's obviously in our wheelhouse and fully within our control. But yeah, to turn your salespeople into essentially just cashiers and people that can close layup deals all day, I don't think there's a greater priority that you could focus on, because that's generally where the most leverage is. You know, and if you do basic math, which most people never fucking do, and you throw things into a financial model and you quantify like the difference of a 10, 20% show rate, maybe you're on the higher end, you see a 30% lift in show rate for some of these things. It's like, that's huge in terms of the numbers it does. You get more cap collected per sale and people that are willing to trust you and actually buy. Again, huge fucking differences, even if you see no lift at all in show rate and close rate and just in AOV and PIFs, you know, let alone you take all combination of these things and do literally all of them. It's just, it's really hard to fuck that up, you know?
Yeah. I mean, right now, like, seriously, the KPI is, you said, like 70%, and we keep thinking 70%. And if we go from 50 to 70, like, it is massive.
Oh, you should, dude. I mean, think about it, right? Like, 1 out of 2 people are essentially saying, I've got something else better than talking to these guys.
Yeah. We get a lot of cancels.
Why is that happening?
Like today, we had 30 cancels by like noon. Cancels, not no shows, which is very interesting, right? It's like, oh, scheduling.
Self-canceled or setter canceled?
Self-canceled.
Yeah, that's insane. That really goes to show, to be clear. Like I said, to me, that's
again, we do a ton of volume too. So like, it's still, but yeah, it's like, it's
no,
great.
I understand. I mean, look at your scale, like 30 calls might be like a couple percent for the day's worth of calls. I get it, but either way, like 30 calls, you know it in terms of revenue, how significant that is in dollars.
Yeah.
You know, and I bet you still care about those tens of thousands of
I
dollars.
do. I do.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why we so like, what happens I'm curious. So like, what is, because I want to do some of these questions. Like we said, we'll pick and choose some of them, but like, for the CMO wants to get into your group, I think obviously value's there, but like, what is that? So people fully know, like, what's included in there. So obviously your systems, your stuff, you're hanging out with other people doing it. Like, your average person.
The inner circle offer specifically?
Yeah. Chill a little.
We do twice a month one-on-one calls, 30 minutes. Believe it or not, most people don't even book them from how efficient everything is answered in writing. We generally find that most of the people are busy and rich, so they book calls when they need to, but you could book up to twice a month. You're more than welcome to be clear. And we have more than enough availability to have that happen. We do weekly group calls. We do those on Saturdays at 11 a.m. As an example, the most recent request was literally earlier today, a couple hours ago. On a one-on-one call, I was talking to a guy spending $35K a day, and he was asking about testing structures and like how he could test ads more efficiently than how he was. He didn't really have a good way to test at scale. And somebody else asked a question about that. And I was like, hey, we could talk about this on this upcoming Saturday call. So it's like self-requested by members in the group and then to a degree put up to a vote, where everybody can kind of say like, yeah, that's what we want to talk about. We do our quarterly masterminds. So we do them in January, April, July, and October. The Q3 one's coming up here in the middle of July. And then we have our Oh, we also have AI Jeremy, by the way, which is fucking insane.
I heard
We
about
have,
that
dude,
today.
4.2 million data points trained on that thing. Everything, including calls like this, get uploaded, one-on-one calls, client calls, consulting calls, every message I send, every voice note I send, every single thing I obviously create and document, period, every course video I've ever done, like literally all of it, every SOP is all uploaded into this thing. And it's not just unorganized data that's uploaded into it. We actually organize the brain in levels for like what it communicates about at a higher priority than others. It's simply put, it's very effective for talking to it about what you know you need to know. And all of the course content and everything that we provide to the people who join, which is a substantial amount in terms of a course library access, those are for like your exploratory learning, you know, for like your, okay, these are the things that are either kind of like an executive summary versus the full book. It's like, I don't even know I need to know this. Let me watch this and see if it applies. Or, hey, I want to learn this same thing, but in an expanded way. Go watch the lessons. And then outside of that, very active group chat. We do all our group chats on Telegram in our case. We find the organization to be superior in comparison to any other community-based platform that we could be on. And yeah, I mean, to be clear, like just today, we had a guy doing 700K a month join. Our minimum to be a part of it's 100K a month. Obviously, you're well in excess of that. There's 18 people in there currently that do $1 million a month. The highest one in there currently does 5.7 mil a month. And yeah, everybody, I mean, to be clear, like it's kind of shocking, but you get perspective from like all ends of the spectrum. Yeah. And even the people that are at like the lower levels of revenue, they still have significant amounts of data to contribute because usually they can run differently comparatively to the big people. And the lessons from the big people apply very differently to the small people. And the range of perspective is so extreme. I learn a lot from my own mastermind. I know it sounds super pretentious to say because I obviously run it and like I make all the money off of it in this case. I'm the one getting paid. This is the best mastermind I've been a part of.
No, dude, it's real. It's yeah, like our
I learned a
CMO
tremendous amount of shit from my own group. You know, yeah, and it's so cool. Like we, you know, we never pitch or anything at masterminds. Like obviously, you're already paying to be a part of the group. Every person that speaks is from the group itself because it's full of awesome people that know a lot of shit. You know, we give out in our group. We celebrate $1 million months. So every time you get your next million a month, or every time you hit your first million a month, we give a big ass trophy celebrating your win, and we generally have you do a talk if you want to. Not everybody's available to come and do the talks, but you know, whatever, they're still all great. And then we bring in an occasional outside of the group guest speaker, but you know, pretty rare. And yeah, I mean, obviously we understand the game. Like it's pretty simple. It's very different than other masterminds in that regard because most masterminds are just like, you know, an actual mastermind where like you go to like an event and you like sit down maybe once a year or twice a year with a bunch of people you don't really know, and like you kind of like surface level network with some folks, and maybe you get a dinner in or two where if you're lucky to get invited to it, you get a deeper conversation with some guys.
It's true.
In this case, it's like, you know, imagine showing up, you know, upwards of 4 times a year, which we get about 1/3 of the group that shows up to each one of the masterminds in terms of total quantity versus total members. And, you know, the quantity of people and the types of people that show up to each one change. Like some people have a preference to go to just Q4 or just Q1, or like, you know, the summertime ones are generally a little lighter, although this year it's not. And anyway, I digress. Point I'm trying to make is now comparatively, you show up to a group session like this in person. Well, you already have like been very active inside of a community, seeing what these people do and how they do it. You've likely already communicated and coordinated with them ahead of time. It's like you show up with much deeper connections with people that are already a part of it, and you get the benefits of meeting a bunch of people you don't already know. And then that deepens your relationships when you go back to digital again and are just learning from people. You kind of put a face to the name when you meet them in person, obviously, or when you meet them digitally and then get to meet them in person. So it's really cool. I haven't seen anybody have any willingness to like actually do things like what I do with like one-on-one stuff or like even just weekly group calls. I made it my mission. I truly have so much fun just helping other people get richer, you know, because then I get richer too. And it's still, believe it or not, it's still a fraction of what I make in total. So I think that helps a lot. This is very important as a principle that I deeply believe to be true with this. Because I make so much on rev shares from the client side of our business on the agency. And again, we make good money with the inner circle, to be fair, but it's like, again, it's still a fraction of what we make as a whole. Because I don't actually give a fuck about the individual who buys and then needs to drop out eventually, it allows me to be brutally fucking honest, because I'm in a position where my money comes from what I actually teach and do from rev shares. And as a result of that, you get the perspective you genuinely need somebody to tell you. In comparison, imagine paying a guy where all their money comes from their mastermind in this context,
Uh-huh.
like that person's going to coddle you. Like they're going to give you advice that keeps you a part of it. You know, people in here
And
stay a part of it
outdated
because
because they're
they
not
make a
doing it.
fuckload of money, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. I think the person who runs it has to be financially free to the point where there's like a leader that has brutal fucking honesty with you about what you got going on. That way, if they, you know, because I say stuff occasionally that can set you a little bit, you know, and hold you accountable. Nobody likes being held accountable to an aggressive standard, but again, it helps you get a lot richer when you have somebody like that, regardless of your level of income. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then on the agent, I mean, and completely on people who are actually doing it, you're actually doing it on the agency side. So it's like real time, like you said, the pendulum, like you'd still be teaching 2020 tactics if you stopped in 2020 and made all your money now on info code education.
I can't stand people like that. Like that's such a fucking scam. That's an actual scam, you know, to teach shit and not actually be doing it in real time. Like, fuck that, dude.
Yeah.
I don't resonate with that. I mean, but moral of the story is I'm very, I mean, that's where we get all our stuff in real time, you know, is from just doing stuff. This is where we originate all of these ideas. It's so funny.
Who's ICP on that side?
Like what is on the client side?
Yeah. Because you said, a couple different things. So like monetization method, profit share, or I'm sorry,
I got
rev
23
share
individual characteristics. I call them my perfect client traits. Okay.
23.
23. Yeah. They're very particular because as you can imagine, if the probability to get to 10 mil a year, according to that US Bureau of Labor Statistics is 0.1% to hit 10 mil a year. This is very important to understand. Like my front facing content on YouTube is helping people with these lessons from hitting $1 million months. But when we do a client deal, I have to help the person net $1 million on actions trackable back to me for me to get 100K a month on that deal, which means I generally need to take somebody to at least 2 million a month with smaller margin businesses, sometimes more than that. So our true scale that we reach with clients is it has to be a few million a month at a minimum in almost all instances, unless it's super high margin or unless we have a lot of leverage in the deal and just get a higher rev share. But yeah, simply put, it's always high ticket. It's always some kind of high ticket product or service. Ideally, it's higher margin, but we don't care if it's info. About half our deals at this point are info. The other half range across a pretty wide range of services, just kind of high ticket services and other high ticket products. Like as an example, that hyperbaric chamber example I provided, red light panels. We had a guy who was selling a $35,000 infrared sauna with red light panels integrated into it as a great example of a high ticket product. Anyway, it's some kind of high ticket product or service. The person's cool and they understand the game. Let me be really clear when I say this. I believe advertising is gambling, but with a higher probability in comparison to what most people view gambling as. Gambling is how rich people get far richer and eventually wealthy. And almost all the deals that we have, they go through this process. I've referred to this as summiting. Okay, let me explain the system real quick so you can understand the thesis here. I think it makes a lot of sense. You're likely there yourself as an example. One of the very first things you generally attempt to accomplish when you first try to get richer is leveling up stuff. You know, like it's different for everybody what you might buy first. Like when I very first bought was some clothes. I used to love the brand called Y3. And I felt like the fucking man walking into Y3 and like buying a few $100 sweater or some shit like that, you know? And then eventually like your whole closet's full of shit and you're just like, what's next, you know? And then sometimes it's like cars, sometimes it's houses, sometimes it's none of the materialistic stuff. Sometimes it's like, okay, well, I remember putting my mom and my stepdad on payroll. It's like, well, that felt great, you know, but that was like a later stage summit for me as an example. And once you overcome that, it's like, again, it's like, well, okay, what do you got to do? Like pay off mortgages and like take care of, and once all that kind of stuff gets done, okay, once you officially like check all the boxes, and I call it summiting because I compare it to climbing a mountain, where like you reach these levels where you achieve like a small summit, you kind of get to stand there a moment and you look at your closet in the first example and you're like, yeah, I mean, what else am I really going to buy here? You know, like what should I focus on next that's going to give me the enthusiasm to go out and get a fuckload richer, you know? And then you go back to climbing the mountain again and you reach the next summit. It's like, dude, if I look at my current cars as an example, not sound like a dickhead here, but like my cars are sick. I got like the fucking sickest cars. Like I love them, you know. I don't give a fuck about what other people think of my cars. My cars are cool as fuck right now. I universally love my cars right now. There's not a single fucking thing I'd do or change about them. You know, could I get better cars if I got even richer? For sure. But it's like in terms of summiting, that's my point. It's like when you reach the point where it's like you genuinely feel like you completed the step, the only thing to do after all the steps are accomplished is to start gambling. Okay. And I believe that the peak, like the number one summit to reach is obviously wealth. And I think that to get there, you have to accomplish all these smaller things first that like you kind of get out of the way, because then the only thing to do with your money, you view the money differently. That's also important to understand. You have so much money and so consistently new money coming in that you can risk money in a completely different way than you ever had prior, because you didn't have additional reasons you needed money for random stuff or things or like whatever you otherwise had to spend cash on. You instead just solely are, I'm going to risk money to go make a fuckload more money and just see if the guy was telling you about this, going to spend $5 million on a challenge. Okay. Why in the world is that the choice to spend $5 million on? It's like, the guy's probably just bored as fuck and is like, could I gamble this fight? Like, what else could you possibly spend $5 million on that's going to return on a percentage basis as much as that's going to return? Like, that's without exaggeration going to return hundreds of percent. That guy could literally, we had a client do $19 million this year on an event. It's like they spent sub $2 million on the event, you know, and that's a lot to spend on an event. They flipped $19 million. It's like, again, when you risk large sums of cash, or for some people who have smaller summits, to be fair, like some people don't need my cars, you know, they just need like a car and they feel complete. You know, everybody's summits are different. But what I do find is the people that have larger summits that are like more serious stuff and accomplishments along the way, they typically gamble with greater sums by the time they get to the point of being the gambler. Okay. And when you get to the point of being the sophisticated gambler, I can't stress it enough. You have like the ultimate position to take the level of necessary risk that's required to make some serious fucking cash. That is an example of a client trait. I look for that in everybody. Yeah. Even if you're at a small level of revenue, if you've accomplished the summits and you've reached the point where I can tell you like, all right, look, dude, like this month, the reason you're hiring me is because I'm going to increase the odds even further of the bet playing out. The bet still might not play out, but you're fucking pushing the chips in the table right here. Not all the chips, a respectable amount of chips, but like you're pushing chips in the table right now. And I understand the game. You want to turn the chips into more chips and you want to do it within 30 days. Okay. I genuinely consider people like me to be like modern day money managers that are like more aggressive levels of risk. Like if you want to just take your money and like, you know, get like traditional returns, you know, go put it in a, which you should, by the way, you should regularly invest like cash into traditional means, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't. However, when you want like the level of cash that they're trying to get and the speed in which they're trying to get it, advertising in businesses, name anything else you can get hundreds of percent of a return within a month risking cash on. Yeah, in a reasonable, like pretty high probability to play out way that's safe and legal.
Yeah. Very, very small.
Very few, if any. I genuinely can't think of any. And I'm open to being oblivious to them and having somebody tell me about some. But like in this particular case, when people pay me what they pay me, it is because, again, they are at the point where they become a sophisticated gambler. They know that this is the highest probability to turn money into even more money within the shortest duration of time in a very sustainable, reasonable way that can also be scaled and leads to even more money. Like, Ryan, have you not had anybody come to you and say, I'll fucking buy you out for like a couple $100 million relative to the amount of revenue you've done? You know, it's like, and if you haven't, you're just a few connections away from some big dick coming in and just saying like, here's some serious cash for you and your partners. Yeah. Okay. It's like, we've had info guys that do 22 mil a year get bought out for a minority stake for 40 mil cash as an example. You know, it's like, to be clear, like, what game can you possibly play where those are the outcomes? You see? So like, as an example of a characteristic, like I vet for that, you know, I look for the person who's not like on their last dollars and is like super fucking pussy and scared about like pushing a few chips into the table and is like, you know, going to be a really high pressure deal where they're like, oh my God, like, you know, this has to work. Otherwise I'm fucked. It's like, we're not doing deals like that. You know, it's like, we're doing deals with people that, like I said, are, I got more than enough chips. I'm going to take a handful of those chips, toss them your way, turn it into more money, and I'll fucking front you more chips. Okay. Let's get richer. It's like, that's the game. Okay. And there's, again, without going through all 23 of the individual characteristics, that specific point as an example is, at this stage of the game for where we're at, you know, it changes relative to where we're at, where we've been at as an agency over the years. Is like, that's the game that we're playing, you know, and there's some people that have played, you know, respectfully to them, the agency game completely differently. That's just not how I've chosen to play. I've respected and understood my role within the game and how I'm viewed and what I'm probable to help people do. You know, like
Yeah.
I don't do this to try to exit from my agency one day. I do it for a fuckload of cash flow, you know, month over month. You know, it's like I don't just do this to, you know, there's this one guy in this space. He always says to people when they're shopping against me and him that he'll say some stupid shit like, oh, that guy doesn't have infrastructure. You know, it's like, no, we got a fuckload of infrastructure, but we got infrastructure to play a completely different game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like people come to us simply put as an example of another characteristic when they're trying to play that game.
Yeah.
You know, you can go to another agency. It's going to help you get like a more, you know, conservative return, place you with some random fucking staff they have. You want to work with somebody like a mindset like mine and like actually have like me being the one communicating with you. It's like, yeah, you're going to pay a lot of fucking money, but going to be well worth it when it works out. And it doesn't work out every time. You know, it's also important to note, like we have a really high hit rate, to be fair, really good success rate and long retention. But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it doesn't always work out. But that's a part of the game too. Like I said, it's betting, you know, it's just gambling. So yeah, long story short, I can go on and on, but that's a good example of articulating it.
I know, it's amazing. I want to hit some of these questions. We'll see which ones are good. There's just like so many.
What you got?
We don't have to go into how we structure ad accounts and media buying when taking on new clients. Oh, here's a good one. This one's kind of funny, the classic beginner question, but like I'm actually curious. If you had to start all over again with where you are now, how would you go about it in today's market? So assuming that's no audience, that's no money, but you have all the skills.
Dude, when I very first got started, and this shit still works today, this is how we still get a majority of our deals outside of referrals that we get because we just have notoriety nowadays. But we did this concept called video pitches. So we would sit there and we would make custom videos. We would demonstrate a strategy that we wanted to help the other person with. And my strategies over the years, even when I very first got started, were still unique to me and like things that I created and conceptualized that others weren't talking about, that when you hear them, you just say, makes a lot of fucking sense. You know, like, why wouldn't I do that? And we would pitch people on these specific strategies. And then we would do this concept called value-driven follow-up, where on a week-over-week basis, we would continue to demonstrate our expertise, further articulate the strategies that we wanted to do, show examples of them out in the wild of being executed, and just earn the person's interest to get to the point where we'd get on a call. And that's how we got damn near every big deal that we've ever done and every opportunity, especially when we first got started. So I believe that that's a standout strategy. I say it because it's my favorite strategy to do because nobody ever has the willingness to like do something that's not autonomous and like highly scalable. And I'm not looking for autonomous and highly scalable. I'm looking for the right deals. I've never had an interest in taking like hundreds of clients and like, you know, just being a professionally well-paid babysitter. Like I ran that when I first started and I hated it. Yeah. You know, what I prefer is the sniper approach. Yeah. And that approach is, in my case, executed through that. And obviously this is going to sound biased because I make a fuckload of money doing it, but I do exactly what I do now. I just pitch people on the same exact stuff that we do today that still works, that still is fucking killing it. And also, if I knew the stuff that I knew today, assuming that I had the same knowledge, I would do exact same thing. I might just plug a different strategy into it that's more applicable to literally right now that's probable to work. I also might adapt it to some AI stuff, to be fair. Like if I was like literally starting out again, I would consider pitching people on some AI services. I wouldn't necessarily pitch people on that as like my main thing. I would just be one of those things that I could like augment what I'm already going to do anyway and just make it more efficient or more effective for somebody through some kind of like, again, added augmentation to a strategy that might make things more efficient for them.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, that'd be it.
I loaded up my YouTube channel for the first time to start making these, and I literally had unlisted videos that were ones that were like sniper videos that I made from learning from your like original. That was like one to like this massive real estate broker that had like and got literally on with him. Yeah, I mean, yes, yeah, all these things and like individual landing builder, like for just like it was. All those videos, I had to delete them. I was like, I can't even look at these at how bad they were. I was
I still have so many on my channel. I don't even know how many videos I have on my channel that are unlisted YouTube videos that are for like our value-driven follow-up process or just straight up pitches. It's got to be in the thousands. It's got to be in the thousands. Like there's so many, dude.
Dude, that's hilarious. Next one on here, lead form ads, which you talked about a little bit earlier. So we've never run these, but lead form ads versus landing page book a call ads for someone that's starting with B2B.
Much lower intent type of lead, you know? Like I personally, I just did that S tier video as an example on my channel, and I named that strategy. I call it the Hydra. And I don't just call it lead forms because we do some specific things like with conditional logic and like the backend follow-up system to make it more effective. But you generally have to have a really aggressive, like super hungry sales team in order to have effectiveness with lead form strategies, just because it generates a lower level of interest in a lead due to the fact it's so much simpler and lower intent to fill out, generally already pre-populated with their information. Even if you do the higher intent option and you give people the opportunity to type in their data, it's still typically lower intent.
Yeah.
You get a fraction of the people, like a small fraction, that are going to go and even do something like press the button to go and consume whatever information that follows. So the best strategy to like have effectiveness with that is to have a sales team of people that don't give a fuck at all that the leads are coming in lower interest. Typically, these types of sales teams have to be extremely good educators. So when you have an educator role, or you have an entire sales team that plays the educator role, what they're going to do is they're going to have a lot of effectiveness communicating information to people to increase interest and then have sales-based conversations with them. People aren't dumb. Like, they know that you're calling and talking to them about something due to the fact you want them to buy it. Okay. Yeah. But sales organizations that like call people and then just, oh, they didn't answer, they're unqualified. Nuke them. Like, never fucking run that strategy ever if you have that type of team. You have to have people that are willing to sell via text, follow up like a dozen times before they even establish initial communication. These people have to just be like so grateful for the opportunity that they even have people to dial on. That's kind of the frame that the salespeople have to be in order to have a lot of effectiveness with that strategy. It works legendary level when it works. But to be clear, it has a very high failure rate with organizations that just have really shitty sales teams of people that might be good with like call funnel type leads. But, and I want to be fair and saying, generally that same type of sales team will have a hard time selling with call funnel leads too. Yeah. Unless you do a tremendous job with what we talked about on a majority of this here on this call here today. Yeah. If you just do like a standard call funnel where you get people to book, do traditional reminders, they're going to suck ass with those types of leads too if you have that type of team, to be clear. Yeah. You still have to have a lot of information. That type of team typically does best like webinars, challenge funnels, like low ticket to high ticket stuff. This strategy, if you have that type of team, is so cost effective because the leads come in so cheap for like good qualified people, especially when you leverage conditional logic and only send the right people back to that pixel, and you deny the wrong people from filling out in its entirety. Just drop them out of the form based on conditional logic question. But yeah, in my S tier list video, I couldn't rank it higher, I think, than like a C or maybe even a D, because I ranked those strategies solely based on effectiveness across a majority of deals and across a majority of accounts that try it. So again, I absolutely love that shit. Yeah. But I don't get to run it a lot of the time due to
back to the sales team issues. Back to the sales team issues.
Yeah, you're telling me. And like, you can augment that strategy with a lot of what we talked about here today. But like I said, due to the fact that leads come in at a lower level of interest in the first place, you're still going to have like a lot of touch points that are required before you actually get even on a call. A lot of those are earned via text and via written communication prior to the call. Simply put, just it takes a lot of sales team adaptation to be able to have effectiveness with that strategy. That's all it really comes down to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Next one on here, and we're going long, so you can tell me whenever you got to stop. But desirable CAC for a 6 to 8K product. So more so new ROAS targets when you're doing.
I mean, dude, as low as possible. You know, like there's no right answer. There's no fucking static answer for like how low a cost of acquisition should be. It's like, just get it as low as you can. Obviously, you want to profit as much as possible. It just depends on what you tolerate. You know, to give like a slightly different answer to that. That's still technically, in my opinion, answers the question. Just don't be one of those dumbasses that's like, oh, I'm at like 40% on my profit margin and I'm not willing to scale. It's like a lot of people stay stuck because they don't have any willingness to push the spend up and make more money because they're at a limit on what they view their profit should be. Like, I've had guys, I love telling this story just because it's so fucking wild to me that like somebody could be in this frame at this level. There's a guy that was like a 25, 24 to 1 ROAS. At like no money in spend. Starts spending more money. Drops to like a 19 to 1. Immediately pulls back the spend. And I'm like, why in the fucking world are you pulling back the spend? And he was like, oh, my ROAS dropped. And I'm like, you're a 19 to 1. Like, you should like mortgage whatever you can mortgage
exactly.
as much debt as possible and like fire hose spend at that fucking thing. If it went down to 2 to 1, you should still be fucking ripping the spend. And it's like, people have a very like either or mentality where instead of just scaling and fixing things to optimize stuff and make more money. Instead, they think it's an either or thing. It's like generally those people, they like to think in things like good and bad, right and wrong. You know, they have a tough time doing boths. You know, rich people do boths.
Yeah.
And long story short, you can scale and optimize at the exact same time. If, to be fair, there's a specific threshold where your profitability is obviously no longer profitable, yeah, like that's a great argument to cut back and, you know, reduce everything and like fix shit and then scale back up again. But I don't know. I mean, what the fuck are you looking for? That type of question, like, oh, it should be like $2,000 for a. No, dude,
Yeah,
like,
you
just
should always
make
start
it
at
as
4x.
profitable as you
If it
can and
dips,
spend a
cut it,
fuckload more money to make more money. You know?
Yeah, it's such a bigger conversation. LTV to CAC game is like so real on some of these bigger ones.
Let it rip.
It's like, yeah, this is a good one. There's another one on here. There's a big, big media buyer, really big media buyer in Google World. But he says all he talks about is structure, sales, absolutely crushes. I want to know more about creative. What the fuck does the creative side look like in his world?
Dude, first of all, let me just give like the proest tip ever for like, because you do a lot of stuff like real time right now that works. Have you seen a VO3 ads yet? Have you tested anything like that for your brand?
I haven't tested it, but yeah, well, I'm friends with a
Test
lot
it
of
like as
affiliate
soon as you
lead
get
gen
off this
guys.
call. Dedicate one of your staff members or hire a staff member that can just sit there and like make VO3 ads all day because they take like fucking forever to be able to make. Because you got to like screenplay them, you know. Like I would honestly have willingness to hire like a retired or like somebody that's just not getting paid enough in like Hollywood that like writes TV shows and movie scripts for a living. I would hire somebody like that to make ad scripts and sit there with VO3 and like iterate on like scripting and like tying it all together and making really good ads. We have an inner circle member. His name's Ewan. He had 2.2% was his lowest outbound link click-through rate. His highest outbound link click-through rate in the same campaign across different ad sets was 23%. Unique outbound link click-through rate. And this was a result of a VO3 ad that was very well created. That was like 2.5 minutes long, you know, made 8 seconds at a time. Yeah. And anyway, there's a lot of people that are taking advantage of that now inside of my world, especially the ones that are like more like faceless or like people that can just have like others or have benefited from like UGC stuff in the past. Point being, dude, creative is, in my opinion, typically best with some form of a video ad. I deeply believe in videos being more powerful than images due to the interest spectrum. You just get a higher level of intent from people that can come through better framed on an ad. And therefore your landing pages can be a lot more simplistic. When you have a very low intent, like curiosity driven ad, that's going to force you to build a page completely differently. And due to the lack of sophistication and education of most people who are business owners that are marketing, tying those two things together, they'll just fucking throw an ad up in a landing page and they don't correlate those two things at all. You have to have creative that brings a high intent individual through the process. And if that is the case, you can have a simplistic page. If you have a very low intent, low curious, like just base level lead, then you have to have a page that does an extensive amount of interest lift in order to have a very good lead come through the process and great conversion rates as a result. So you can obviously tie the two together and have great creative and great pages. We have a call funnel right now? Listen to this crazy shit. I bet you never heard a statistic like this. 29% conversion rate on click to scheduled qualified call on the page. I've never even seen anything like that. I've usually seen like single digits, 29% right now. That's how dialed in the messaging is with getting enthusiastic in-market people to that page. And the page fucking aligns perfectly to what they expect to hear when they click to it. And they convert at an extremely high rate and good feedback from the sales team too on them. And again, my point is like, that's like an insane expectation. Don't fucking come to me and say, oh, I should get a 29% conversion rate because you said that on a video. It's like, no, dude, you can get single digit conversion rates on qualified book call pages and still rip like serious ROAS.
Yeah.
But yeah, my point is like, yeah, creative. I typically bias towards videos just due to the effectiveness on the interest spectrum. However, we do a lot of images as well. A lot, to be fair, but yeah, such significant differences. It just depends on the brand. You know, if it's a personal brand, you should be doing videos all day. You know, you're going to do a lot of videos anyway for a lot of the strategies we run. In my world, we like content ad strategies. You know, I'm one of the few advertisers that I've ever met that spends a fuckload of money on content distribution because I've seen its effectiveness in the sales process and how much it can sway buyers. Whether it's like the hammer them strategy where it retargets at specific points in the sales process, or whether content is what originated the leads being in the world in the first place. And then we follow up with direct response strategies. But there's so many different individual content ad strategies that we've conceptualized that are unique to us over the years. And That's a big part of what we do too. And again, all those are videos. Like none of those are images. You know, they're always fucking videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway. I hope
Yeah.
that
So when you
helps.
take on these new deals, you're doing like you're coming up with a content list, you're coming out or you're writing full on scripts and then they're shooting all these, like when you partner with a lot of
Oh
these
yeah.
guys.
I,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can share my screen on this thing, but
Yeah, you
a
can. I
lot of
think
what
so.
we do
I
is
don't
we'll
know.
make like full blown ad ideas for these people and scripts. Sometimes we'll give them like more like general outlines of what we want them to say, and in other instances we'll give them like full blown like actual like word for word things. It's really dependent on the client. You know, sometimes we prefer to have like teleprompters and things like that, although more rare. Other
Yeah.
times they just prefer simple, like, you know, talk like this kind of stuff and touch on these general points. But we'll film like upwards. We typically do hook body call to actions in our ads. That way we can interchange them.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have a lot of like creative testing strategies that we deploy at different levels of scale that vary, give or take, like how much we're spending per day. But yeah, in most instances we'll film like kind of like Legos, you know, like interchangeable sections, but we'll have them film the entire thing at once. And then let's say we get like 15 unique ads from a client as an example. Well, in that instance, we have, you know, the 15 unique hooks, the 15 unique bodies, and then the 15 unique CTAs. And in most instances, we'll also get approved B-roll folders from the clients as well that we can interchange. And we end up having a very extensive amount of creative. And ideally that creative hits so we don't have to get them to go film another 15 in a short time frame. Because if it does hit, you know, we work with busy rich people for a living. So all the advice that we give people is not something that's time and effort intensive.
Yeah.
It's intended to be efficient and very, very conscious about the individual's time that is taking action on these things. So we try to have a wide range of hooks and a wide range of bodies and not necessarily a wide range of CTAs. Those are generally very similar, to be fair. But the the interchangeableness of our ads plus B-roll gives us a tremendous amount of creatives that we get to run. And then, yeah, from there, it's opinion based to a degree. You know, we try to, you know, project what we think might be most probable to work. And we always mix in stuff that we do not believe is probable to work because we don't want to be right. We just want to make money.
Yeah. No, that's real. And there you guys, I mean, you're mainly on Meta, but do you guys do multi?
No, we run traffic on all channels, to be clear. I consistently talk about Facebook and Instagram ads due to the fact that's where a majority of the spend goes out from our clients, to be fair, and from a majority of the people that come to us. We still spend a great chunk of change on things like Google AdWords. TikTok's a little scary, to be fair. Like not everybody scales up on TikTok due to the fact it's like a banned conversation here in the United States every 90 days on a rolling basis. But yeah, I mean, we still have a good chunk of change that we spend on TikTok as well.
Cool.
We have a small fraction, to be fair, that spend on LinkedIn. It's like 20 times more costly comparatively to almost every other ad channel. We generally don't do anything else on a lot of the other ad channels. If we do, it's like a test or like, you know, something super marginal. But yeah, I mean, we're very well versed on the other ad channels as well.
Yeah, cool. And then quick mindset stuff, or not even mindset, but like vision. So what are you doing? Well, where are you taking this? Like, what's your target? You've got this big ass mastermind. You got this big ass agency with the correct monetization model that can, you know, scale to the moon. Like, where are you going with this?
Look, I love money so much, and I understand the impact that it has on both my life and everybody else that I help get richer. Look, I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to virtue signal when I say this, okay? I genuinely love money so much. You know how people ask that question to you? I'm sure you get it all the time, Ryan. What's your hobby? You know, like, what do you enjoy doing besides making money? And I personally am like, my dopamine fires off at such an aggressive rate. You know, if you did brain scans on me, I bet I'd be in like an insane spectrum comparatively to like a drug user, you know, and I can help other people get richer. It's like hardwired in me that this is my favorite thing to do. And I'm deeply self-aware about that. And you know how people always get to say things and not everybody gets to resonate with it, where they're like, I truly love what I do. This is like my favorite fucking pastime, and it makes me money and is my literal business at the same time. I am at a point where I've built a great world that continues to expand, thankfully, where I just get to do literally what I love. It's my favorite hobby. It's my favorite pastime. It's my favorite topic of conversation. Like this exact thing, Ryan, I truly don't even view it as any other way than just, we got to talk about money for a good hour and a half here today.
Literally.
And it's exactly what I wanted to talk about and spend this time doing. And it's probably what I would have spent the time doing anyway with somebody else regardless. You know, the more I get to talk about it, the more I love my life and the more enthusiastic I am. And more importantly, from like more like a mission driven perspective,
I deeply believe in the power of money. I think that rich people are some of the most important people on earth. I believe in the impact that we make. I believe that we are some of the most philanthropic people that exist, even when we're not intending to be. You and I get to go to a dinner and tip a guy $1,000 like it's $20 to us. You probably more than me, to be fair. You make a lot more than me. But I can't stress it enough. It's like you get to make so much impact, and you get to build and actualize things at a speed in which that people without as much money don't get to do. And as a result of that, like, we impact the world faster and at a greater scale comparatively to anybody else. So the more people I can get rich, the more rich I can get, which again, I absolutely love. I love money. And like I said, I'm not virtue signaling. I do everything I do to get richer. But at the same time, I get that added benefit of, like, it's my favorite pastime, you know? It's like, I don't fucking golf. I don't sit around and do fuck all. You know, I watch an occasional basketball game because it's across the street with the Miami Heat here. But it's like, other than that, dog, this is like the fucking greatest life ever that you could have blessed me with. And I hope to just perpetuate it, make it bigger, you know, scale my impact up, and be a person who you can have a good, genuine conversation with about getting as rich as you possibly fucking can. You know, that's here to help you do it too.
Yeah,
so
100%.
I don't know what I would do differently, man. This is what I've always envisioned, and this is it. You know, I love it. I just think it gets bigger from here. Is it? You know.
I agree. Well, this was good. I mean, we went up 35 over, so I'll cut it here. But no, we definitely need a part 2 that's mindset-y, that's all that. Because I mean, I watch all your stuff. And I've watched it forever.
Dude, I'm a D1 yapper, Ryan. I can talk all day about all this stuff. Like I said, my favorite things to talk about, man. So whenever you're ready, let's see what the people say with this first one.
Exactly.
Whenever you want to have you back on, man. Red carpet's out for you.
I'll come out to Miami. It'll be better. But cool. All right. Well, people know where to find you, right? YouTube, X. So those are your two core.
Check out my YouTube. You know, I drop twice a week YouTube videos, like what Ryan was saying at the beginning of this. They're all bangers. You know, I try to just help people get richer with those. And then you ever want more serious stuff, obviously, you know, just pay me, because that's ultimately where the real value is. And I do other stuff. Like I have the Twitter people that take all my YouTube videos and like populate it all on Twitter for me. I do stuff on Instagram. If you get follow me on Instagram.
Instagram's great. Instagram, you're at Jeremy, right? Just at Jeremy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, just at Jeremy.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah, man. I mean, just tap in, you know.
yeah, 100%. Then I'll message you offline because our CMO is very serious about it, and like, so we'll have to figure out how or who gets to go to that or what. So we'll definitely do that.
Looking forward to helping you get richer, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's day 104. This will come out tomorrow morning, actually. I usually do these on day, but I had one earlier today because I'm traveling this weekend. So I wanted to make sure I could batch them.
But stack it up.
Stack it up. All right, cool. Well, I will talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.